All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. This is March the 9th, 6:01 p.m. in the evening. All members are here. Can I call roll real quick, if you don't mind? Eddie, can we start with you? Eddie, Russ Ed, I'm sorry, I said Eddie. Russ Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards, Alderman for Ward 3.
Petrelli, Vice Mayor Petrelli. Vice Mayor Petrelli, are you with us?
You're muted, Peg.
Unbelievable. I'm not. Audio settings.
I can hear you now. Like you don't feel too good.
I'm on.
Sorry, we couldn't hear you.
You're muted again.
Peg, we heard you, so I'm going to say you are present, okay?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we sure can.
I don't have audio. I can't hear you all. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm on the phone with Mary Beth trying to fix it. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're all right. We can give you a moment. Let's just take a couple minutes and hopefully she can get her situation fixed while they're working on that. We have an agenda for us. I'll just go ahead and talk about it a little bit.
Well, hold on. Hold on 1 second. Let me try it again. Oh my God. Hold on.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I said, be careful what you're saying.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like we're in too big of a hurry. I don't think that's a really heavy agenda.
It's not.
So you should be fine. We should be fine.
I would think so. I'd have Alderman Robertson with us tonight, and around the gallery here, who else we might have? Alderman Hayes. Okay, good. Good to see you, Alderman Robertson.
Chairman Campbell.
Good to see you, sir. All right. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and dig into our agenda. We have an agenda, and first item on the agenda is a discussion of resolution 2021-13 applying for the SAFER grant. Chief Bush. Chief Bush, would you like to fill us in on that, where we're at?
Yes, sir. So all this is per our internal control policy, just asking for permission for us to submit for the SAFER grant with the caveat of it's 3 years like it was the previous SAFER grant, but it's 100% paid for by the federal government. There's no matching funds or no percentage of funds that the city has to contribute for 3 years.
And when we say it's a match, it's a 100%. Do they also cover the insurance and costs like this, or are those on?
That's everything. Salary and benefits is included in that. It costs the city nothing. And again, all this is to ask permission. We found out about this about maybe a week ago, and the deadline to apply is Friday. So all this is asking the mayor to expedite it for us to move forward with it. Before we do anything, obviously, if we get accepted, then the board would have to vote to, I'm assuming, to let us go ahead and do that. But again, there's no money involved with that whatsoever.
Any of the board members, committee members have any questions regarding the SAFER grant at this time?
Yeah, seems like a no-brainer.
I agree 100%. Alderman Petrelli, Vice Mayor Petrelli.
Can you hear me now?
I sure can.
Okay, hold on.
You just muted yourself again now.
Okay, I guess it's working.
Yes,
No,
it is.
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right. Now we don't need to take an action right now, do we? I mean, we've already voted on this to take to the board. So I mean, we're ready to go, aren't we?
I think you guys still have to vote to move it to the board, but I think it's on the agenda per the mayor. So you guys would vote really on it then, but I don't know the procedure. You guys would know better
Okay.
about that than I would.
Well, do we have a motion to take it to Boma?
Also move.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second to take the Safer Grant to to Boma for a discussion and a vote for 3 years of 100% paid employees, 15 new employees. If we should get that grant, that'd be a wonderful thing. All in favor, when I call your name, please say aye if you're in favor, and no. Alderman Edwards, I'm sorry. All in favor of the ordinance, when I call your name, if you would, say aye. And if you're opposed, say no. Alderman Edwards,
Aye.
thank you. Vice Mayor Petrelli. Unmute yourself again. There you go.
aye.
Thank you. And the chair is an aye as well. Thank you. That passed unanimously. All right. Item number 2, discussion of ordinance 2020-39 solicitors, peddlers, Petrelli, Edwards, and Brown. That's an older document that we've discussed in the past. So someone like to, Alderman Petrelli, would you like to discuss that, or who would like to discuss that since someone brought that to the board for discussion? Somebody put it on the agenda, so I'm thinking.
I guess I can speak a little bit to it, but
Yes,
I don't know
sir.
the workings. Erica sent this to me and asked me to put it on the agenda. I think it's lingering by the ordinance number from last year. I think with the COVID and everything, it kind of slept off everybody's radar. I think the discussion back then was there was a lot of solicitors during the COVID outbreak, doing different things. And I think from what I remember or recollect is that you guys were wanting to limit the times and some other things with peddlers and solicitation, but that's more of a police thing. That's not something we dabble in.
I agree. I do recall what you're talking about with the COVID-19 and the peddlers going door to door, going to limit that. So I'm assuming we need to vote on this ordinance then, 2020-39. And
Well, I have a question, Chairman, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Did we already approve of that?
what I'm looking at it is just a blank ordinance that has not been signed by the mayor or our city attorney or even the city recorder, Robert Manning. So this says first reading, second reading. It's an ordinance for solicitors, an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code title, Chapter 9, Chapter 1, peddlers and solicitors. And it says, talks about the time limits. Times permitted, no solicitation shall begin prior to 8 a.m. And solicitation shall cease by 6 p.m. Central Standard Time or 7 p.m. Central Daylight Saving Time. So
I remember us talking about that.
me too.
I thought we passed that, but yeah, I guess it's one of those that maybe we forgot to follow up on. Or
Yeah, I think per the email that I got you guys, per Erica, this was supposed to go back to October, but October, November, and December's regularly scheduled public safety meetings all got canceled. So that's kind of where we're at now. And I guess since then, it's kind of just still remained off everybody's radar.
Okay. I do remember this time last year when COVID was just starting. Because I think at one point, didn't we suspend solicitations for a couple of weeks?
Yes, ma'am. I believe we did.
Okay, so this might have gotten lost in that. But I know at the back of the peninsula here, Pat, our peninsula, there was a lot of high solicitation going on, like right at dusk. And I know folks were getting pretty upset about that. And I think I spoke to Chief Miller about it, or maybe Assistant Chief Jones. And I think we were just trying to put like an end on it so that people knew, okay, solicitations ends at this time. So if somebody was coming to their door, they knew it was not a permitted solicitor because they would know what the times are.
Makes sense to me. I do recall that conversation though. Yes, ma'am.
You're exactly right, Meg.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So do we have a motion to pass this on to BOMA to have this approved?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second? All right, we have a motion been approved. Any other discussion for this particular ordinance this time? Any other aldermen have any comments they'd like to make? Alderman Robertson, Alderman Collins, Alderman Hayes, Mayor Clary.
Oh, my doorbell's ringing. A solicitor. I've got to go answer it.
Well, I've got a dog going crazy downstairs right now, barking at somebody out front. I know that for a fact. All right. All in favor of this ordinance, say aye when I call your name, please. Alderman Edwards,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Petrelli,
Aye.
and the chair is aye as well. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving to the next ordinance. Next item on the agenda. Discussion on streets in the city while homes are not. Homes are in the city and streets are not in the city. In other words, we have a street that is part of the city, but yet the property owner is not in the city. They do not pay property taxes. Sort of strange that we would have that situation, but we do. So I would like to ask Chief Bush to open that conversation up since his name is attached to that.
So Larry can probably attest to this too, in case again that my memory slips me. This was brought up at an operations committee meeting that the 911, the E911, not the ECC, they're totally different entities, were having some issues being problematic in the ECC with dispatching units due to the fact that a house was in the city, but the street was not. And then flip it around that the street was in the city, but the home was not. Our stance on that, and Mr. Harvesmeyer can back that up, is we go regardless if we think it is or is not in the city, and we worry about the fallout afterwards. We'd rather provide a level of protection versus not, and something catastrophic happen. But they're looking for some clarity from what I understood from the 911 director, Tanya Jetton. It's been before the executive committee, and it's just causing some issues at the ECC as far as who to dispatch, who to send. Only reason why that I'm trying to bring it here is to maybe get our heads wrapped around it and see if there's some things that we can do. I don't know all the urban growth boundaries. I don't know about the planning commission. I certainly don't know much about all that to speak to it logically. But I just wanted to bring this forward and kind of make sure that everybody supports us still going, regardless of if it's in the city or not. Basically providing some protection that, come to find out, it may be a road that's in the county or a house that's in the county.
That's an interesting situation to be in here, but I do know we have roads that, like you said, front of house that's part of the city or outside the city.
I think attached to that, I provided a lengthy list as well. And it basically says house in the county, road in the city, and then the house in the city and the road in the county. So those are some reference points that maybe you folks can kind of look at, wrap your heads around, and see if there are some things that we can get together and try to help alleviate that problem. And I don't even know if it's possible.
No, one question. Go ahead, Alderman.
No, go ahead, Chairman. Go ahead.
Well, I have a question. When we go outside of the city of Hendersonville, our city limits, we've talked about this in the past about, do we bill the insurance company for the homeowner that we go to, or do we just go and render the aid and our cost, and we cover all the costs, and that is it?
We've always covered it ourselves, and Paul can probably speak on this better than anybody because his experience with the ECC. But our position is same as fire department. We're going to protect the citizens, even if they're not our citizens.
So if I can just interject just for a second to give some background and context. So for example, if you remember years ago, and the annexation laws have changed since then, but the problem, one example is many years ago, the city bought some land at the end of Spear Point. Well, the annexation laws were such that the land had to touch the land that you were annexation was involving. So it had to be congruent to that land. So we actually annexed, and it was our doing, we made it happen. We annexed the road getting out there, but we didn't want all the houses. We just needed to get to that section of land out there. And those two parcels of land, the existing city and what we wanted to annex, had to physically touch. And again, the laws, the annexation laws have changed since then, but that's what those little examples of how we annexed in the past had created these these anomalies and these little problems. So from a public safety response standpoint, it's a nightmare because you could literally have a crash on that road and it'd be in the city, but if the house got burglarized, it was somebody else's jurisdiction. So what Chief Bush is referring to and Chief Miller is that because there's such a fine line in the moment of crisis, you don't want to go, okay, is this house that's burning or this robbery that's in progress or this home invasion? You don't want to go, now, was that actually in the city or is that in the county? So that's off the table. We're going to respond. Now, it's not like we're responding to Portland in a different situation. These are areas that are right on the borderline. So the same thing exists, not in this scenario, but when you get to the end of a road where we just go straight into the county, was it 123 X Street or was it 124? So when that call comes in and we're in that predicament, we're going to respond. We'll figure out the details later. Life and limb is way too important to debate that at the moment. So we're going to go, and I fully support that, and I know y'all do too, because that's just the right thing to do. But what happens is that over the years we have created these situations like the Spear Point. I think that was some land that we purchased from the county and so forth. And again, we could not get to it unless we annexed the roadway. And so we create those situations. So I guess moving forward, from a public safety standpoint and from the city, we just need to be aware. Now, let me back up and say, and this will be a legal question for John. I don't think he's on here, but it's my understanding now that law has changed. So, and I think a good example is the city of Gallatin has actually annexed a bubble out here or some land that's not even touching. So they would have to leave their jurisdiction, go into the county, go to get to their own city because it no longer has to be congruent to each other. So I guess the short of it is, from a public safety standpoint and for good city management and the protection of our citizens, when we do things like that, we keep that in the back of our mind. How does this affect public safety response? And are we annexing land just on a road, or is the border here? And sometimes that can't be helped because you can imagine that like down on Center Point, that's the edge of the city. So does that boundary lie in the center of the roadway and everything on this side is in the county and everything on this side is the city? So some of these things we can't help. I think if we just keep that in the back of our mind when we do annex or we look at that, that we certainly keep that in mind so we don't create additional problems. Fixing this, that's more problematic as far as how we address things like that, because you're talking about boundaries, jurisdictional boundaries that are legal boundaries by definition. I hope
Thanks,
that makes
sir. I appreciate that. That helps a lot.
clear
So-
too.
I think a prime example would be around Durham Farms. One of the, if it's not, it is the largest subdivision that we have. But you look at the list that was provided, you have Avant Lane, and there's several homes on Avant Lane. Those houses are in the city, but the road is in the county, if that makes sense. So if there's a house fire, we're going to respond to that. But if there's a car wreck, we may or may not get dispatched to that. But when seconds matter, that's the confusion, and that's where the problems come in. Now, if we're aware of it, we're going to go, but it certainly can you get spun up on the social media or anywhere else that we don't know where our territories are and we're not responding. And that's my concern is the negative stuff that could come out of that when simply they may not understand how the boundaries are designed.
Do any of the committee members have any comments they'd like to make? Vice Mayor Petrelli?
Thank you. So in situations where a call is made for any of these addresses, typically is Hendersonville responding and the county responding, or is the ECC choosing who's going to respond?
Well, the way it's supposed to work is in the CAD system, the computer-aided dispatch, when that address point is entered, it's supposed to look to the base map and say what jurisdiction, every address point in the whole county has a service tied to it. This law response, this fire response, and this EMS. Now the county EMS is countywide, so that's not as problematic. So the ECC, by the computer generated response, is supposed to assign that and dispatch accordingly. But just like any kind of database, any kind of issues, That's not 100% foolproof. So sometimes there's questions as far as jurisdiction, if an address didn't get updated or a new subdivision goes in and that hasn't been populated yet. And we've had that happen where a new subdivision has gone in, the plat was filed, they're in the process of adding this, and before it could be added to the CAD map, there was a crime involved or a call for service, and it was difficult to locate. So these are the, I guess, the pitfalls of the technology and the timing of getting this information in. And I think the 911, the ECD, the Emergency Communication District, does a good job at that. But to go back to the question, the ECC is supposed to assign those, but could it be, and here's another example, and I don't want to belabor the point because we have time or timing issues, but the call for service could come in from a neighbor down the street that's out in the county. He sees a house 3 houses down on fire, and the city and county city limits and the county line are in between. So when the call comes in, they're out in the county saying, hey, I see a fire. So it looks like that call's coming from that county jurisdiction, but actually the fire is occurring inside the city. That has happened, I can't tell you how many times. And so these are the issues that we face. And so when that happens, if we hear that call or aware of it, or the dispatch is in tune enough to know that's on the border, they may do a dual dispatch, because I would rather send both than debate it while a house is burning or there's a home invasion or a robbery in progress or whatever else. So it's a little bit of both, but that's how that's generated in short, if I answered that question correctly.
That makes sense. Yes.
It's a lot of moving parts.
And last year, this is similarly related, but if you recall, about, I don't know, in the last 24 months through planning, we gave a suggested list of streets that I know the fire department diligently worked on for folks in planning to no longer use those street names. Is that still occurring, cutting down on confusion?
That is occurring. So the 911 director has put into place, no matter where it comes from, that we're not going to duplicate names. We're not going to do sound-alikes like Lake Street, Lake Court, Lake this. We're not going to do that anymore because it's too confusing to the emergency response. I remember having that discussion in public safety some time ago. So any streets like that, we're not going to duplicate. Sound-alikes or anything close is just not going to be allowed. And the 911 director for the ECD is the sole authority over that for that purpose. And they have assured me that will not occur.
Okay,
we have
great.
a lot of that exists already. Kind of have to live with that to a degree.
Sure.
But we're not going to continue the bad practice in the future.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Edwards, do you have anything? All right.
Nothing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. This particular item, is this just for a discussion, Scotty? Chief Bush? All right. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
Yes, sir. There's nothing to vote on. I just kind of wanted people to wrap their head around it. And then again, I don't know if there's anything that we can do to change any of that. You know, it's so many different moving pieces.
Yes, sir. Well, maybe we could look at the boundaries of our city, and I don't know. I don't know if we need to say, hey, quarter mile out, we'll just draw a bubble around our city, and here we are, because you're always going to have intersecting streets and other things like that to have to deal with. So we're just going to have to look at it and try to figure out the best way to handle it. That's what we're doing, even though it's a little rough right now. So thank you for that. I appreciate the information. Also, I've forgotten one other item that the police department needed to add to the agenda without objection. Can we add an item to the agenda real quick to discuss purchasing a totaled out motorcycle? One of our officers had a wreck last year, and it's 2019 Harley Davidson motorcycle needs to be purchased for the amount of $16,500, I believe. I'll let Chief Miller talk about that if he'd like, since Assistant Chief Jones is out of town.
Well, actually, Larry, Lieutenant Daniel will be talking about that. We totaled out a motorcycle, and so we were gonna have to pay $16,500, and they were gonna get the parts. So we worked it out that we get the parts. So hopefully we'll get about $4,500 back once we sold those parts. Yeah, we need an appropriation for $16,500.
Yes, sir.
Larry, go ahead.
Yes, Officer Daniel, please.
I think you actually took care of it, Chief. That's basically where we're at. And I know Mr. Bradley earlier mentioned maybe rewording the ordinance to remove purchase. So we basically have to settle that cost because it was a leased motorcycle, and in turn, they will salvage it to us, and we can recover part of our cost back in selling the parts.
Yes, sir. Any discussion on that from any of the committee members?
No, I'll make a motion to approve that ordinance if that's what everybody needs.
Yes, sir.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve in a second, proper second. Any discussion by any of the committee members? Any discussion by any other alderman or any other members of the audience at this time? Yes, sir, Alderman Robertson.
Yeah, Lieutenant Daniel, did we get any insurance? Was there insurance on the motorcycle?
No, sir, we self-insure the motorcycles because we lease them.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good question. Being no other discussion of the ordinance, I'd like to call for the approval of the ordinance. All in favor, when I call your name, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Alderman Edwards.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Petrelli.
Aye.
The chair is aye as well. And passes unanimously. And the last item on the discussion list here is a discussion of street lights and neighborhoods for safety. I'm bringing that forward because I've had a couple of constituents ask me about increasing the street lights down their street. Some elderly folks that are concerned about some of the rising crime in neighborhoods, and they would like to light up the neighborhood a little bit more than having a street light at each end of the street and at cul-de-sacs. And I was just want to bring forward to it public safety, or this committee thinks, about increasing street light coverage on some of our neighborhoods. So like I said, I've had that from constituents. They've asked me about it. So anyway.
I do know that with Public Works, and Pat, you would know this better than anybody. I think streetlights go on every corner, correct?
Yes,
That's how
they do.
determine- Yeah.
At each corner of a street and also cul-de-sacs. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think, in some of the mid-century neighborhoods, it's a little bit different than maybe some of the newer neighborhoods, but it's just not enough coverage. And I know Rockland Road is extremely dark at night.
Mhm.
And there's no reflectors on that street. So I know in our area, folks would appreciate some more lights. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, ma'am. And I know over there off of the Indian Lake Peninsula, I've had a couple of people reach out to me that have several trees in the area. They'd like to have a few more lights on the streets as well. And here again, just for safety issues. Alderman Edwards, do you have any comments you'd like to make about that?
No, I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's definitely, I know Homestead Place, they're finally installing them over at Homestead Place. They really need, I mean, it's so pitch dark over there at night. It would increase, it would help with safety. And I don't know if this needs to go before the capital projects. And try to get some approval there, including finance. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, I'm all for increasing the lightage. Yeah.
I believe it would go before parking and safety. Is that correct? Or parking, there's a parking committee. Is that not, don't we have a committee that's part of that? I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure what the name of it is. It's one of those committees that's there in the background. They meet every now and then, but
Kind of a mystery.
it's with the police department and I believe the fire department, and maybe public works get together and they talk about these things.
I think Lieutenant Daniel actually serves on the committee along with Public Works. He can probably give you the correct name. It's like parking and traffic or safety.
Parking and traffic, yes.
But from the standpoint of the streetlights, I know we're out of time, but I'll just throw in my 2 cents. I think it's worth the conversation. It's worth maybe having a long-term strategic plan to look at that. I mean, we have a pretty big city. We have a lot of infrastructure. And if we develop a strategic plan, just like we're doing with paving the roads, at least we have a plan that we can follow and not throw in darks, left and right, but maybe look at some cost factors, develop that process, and look for some long-range plans and see what it's going to look like, and maybe how we can best attack that would be my comments.
Thank you, Administrator Hobbs. I appreciate that. Anyone else have any comments they'd like to make real quick before we adjourn our meeting?
Congratulations to Commander Harbsmeyer on your retirement.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you for your
Absolutely.
service.
If you-
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If you see a permanent smile on my face, you know why. So
Yes,
I
sir.
really appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything real quick for our committee? Without that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a
Second.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. It's been properly seconded. All in favor, say I want to call your name, please. Alderman Edwards,
All right.
Vice Mayor Petrelli,
Aye.
and the chair is aye as well. Thank you all. It's been a very good meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.